Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. We're here to review the North London derby on the weekend and the 2-2 disappointing result not to get all 3 points at home. But yeah, I'm going to break down our overview of the game. I'm, of course, FPL Nima, and I'm joined by Clayton at Clayton AFC, my co-host. How are you doing, buddy? Are you still disappointed since Sunday?
Yeah, I am. I'd say I'm less emotional than I was immediately after the game. But the disappointment is still kind of the present emotion I've got. It just felt a bit down immediately after. And I think the game, so obviously I was physically lucky to be physically there, and I don't know if you felt the same, but just I found it such an emotional roller coaster. And this is a game where every single time we play them, like the build up to the game, the morning, the few days before the morning itself, I'm always really anxious, and I kind of lose my appetite. I get really dry mouth and stuff like that. But I was chill on Sunday. I was so chill. I met my mate. We went for breakfast, had a few drinks in the pub, went in the concourse for the 40 minutes before. Saw Mike. See Mike's in the chat. I bumped into Mike and Aaron Plonker in the concourse, and I was so chill, and I was very confident as well going into the game. And then usually what happens when I'm confident for the North London derby is the whistle goes for kickoff, and then the nerves set in. And even that didn't happen. I was still chill. I think we're going to beat these, and then it. It just felt like a game where momentum just kept shifting in terms of who was the dominant team and controlling things. And I just can't shake the disappointment of, I feel like we had them. I thought our pressing in that first 30, 35 minutes was so good and felt like we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Obviously, hats off to Spurs. They were very, very, very good in periods, really well structured, well drilled, really brave on the ball in the way they play through. And what Postecoglou's done there in a short period of time is really impressive, but just can't shake the feeling that the key actions was on us that kind of determined things. But overall, before we get into the specific summary of stuff, my emotion is just it feels like a loss for me personally. And you know me, I love getting digs in and stuff, but I'm not even just saying this as a dig. I genuinely find it a bit interesting that a lot of I've got a lot, so I'm from North London, right? A lot of my friends are Tottenham fans, and a lot of them, the way they're speaking about this game, you'd think they would have won. And I promise you, I'm not even saying that to be a dick. Genuinely, the way they are looking at that is a point away from home at the Emirates. It's a massive thing. And you look at, I don't know how you're feeling, but I feel really down. I'm yeah. But what about you? Where's your head up?
Yeah, I think on the day, it was hard not to be disappointed, just the way it kind of unfolded. The fact that we went ahead both times and then both times they came back. I think the speed at which they came back from the second goal up, that was a real gut punch. That felt like our day wasn't going to go the way we wanted. And then obviously when I saw Jesus getting subbed off, I understand obviously he was subbed ahead of Eddie because he's still, on that recovery journey from the knee injury and surgery. So in an ideal world, you'd leave Jesus on, I would think, not Eddie in that game. But can't really complain. Equally, they had to sub off Son and Madison, which were, with 15 minutes to go almost, and they were the
I'm
two who
glad you said that about
combined
the
both.
fitness thing, though, because all the people around me were going nuts, and I was it's quite clearly he's not fit. He's not gonna take him off with how the game was going by choice, is he? Well,
Yeah,
that's
he
how I
would want
thought
him
anyway.
there, right? Because you
Yeah,
wouldn't think he would start him against Brentford in the League Cup on Wednesday. So it's kind of like, why would Eddie be the one to stay on? Because I expect Eddie to start again on Wednesday, tomorrow in the League Cup. But yeah, I think it was definitely injury related and obviously wanting to be conscious of the fact that we seem to be the only team in the world that gets these kind of injuries. It's never one injury, it's two players and the
when it
backup.
rains, it pours with Arsenal, right? It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I think like the night before there was these rumors of someone in the Arsenal camp was injured. The
Trossard,
rumors
right?
were it was Trossard, and then it was like, how has this happened? Martinelli's out now. Trossard, his backup, is out. Obviously Partey's out. He's Rice's backup. Then Rice comes off at halftime with an injury. Like we must be the only people on earth where our first choice 6 and the second choice are injured at the same time. Our first choice left wing and the second choice left wing are injured at the same
It
time. It's like
happened last Tomiyasu, who wouldn't directly replace him, but could help with like White shifting there and Tommy going right back. That happened at the same time. Is it? Yeah, I don't want to be
just so frustrating, man.
It's so frustrating. Yeah.
Because I honestly feel that, you have your players, you have Martinelli there, you have a Jesus who can play the full 90, you have Rice playing the full second half. I don't see how we walk away with anything other than a victory there. So I
Me
don't
too.
want to blame, obviously injuries and fair play to Spurs. I thought that was the best they played against us at our ground, at least that I can remember. Normally, I'm used to
Oh
them kind
yeah,
of trying to scrap a draw or a point with
they're
a
very impressive.
penalty,
Yeah,
but they
that's the thing.
genuinely look very good. Yeah.
I'm a very tribal football fan, but the one thing I'd like to say about myself is like I do kind of say it fair when I see it, sort of thing. And yeah, I have to say, like tribal side, tribal rivalry aside, like fair play, they were very good. Annoyingly, should we get
Yeah,
into
so
it
I
then?
don't. Yeah, let's get straight into the game then. I think we've talked a little bit about our frustrations, but yeah, when we look at the lineup, were you surprised that Jesus played on the left wing? I think it's the first time he's ever played there for us. That's probably the only real change, right? And Vieira came in as you predicted, ahead of Havertz. I had thought it would be Havertz, but you were right. It was Vieira, Eddie through the middle, and Jesus on the left wing. I think those were the main kind of talking points from the lineup. Were you surprised when you saw that 1 hour before kickoff?
Yes and no, because I think once it was confirmed that Trossard was out, I was thinking, okay, well, the only other option is Nelson, right? Unless I'm having a mind, well, the only natural left winger, like I guess
I
Smith
guess there's
Rowe
Smith Rowe,
could,
but he's
but
again,
he's
how
not
much has he really played?
exactly. He's not played there since like, well, for 2 seasons pretty much now. And so I was a bit surprised, and I thought it was okay. Like I thought Jesus was good. I couldn't shake this feeling. I kept saying like I was really lucky. One of my closest friends was actually sat right next to me in this game. And I just kept saying to him all game, like, I feel like in football, I do this a lot. We overcomplicate things a lot. And I was just get someone like Jesus, his quality, his unpredictability, everything we spoke about in the preview pod, just put it more central. Have him spinning on Romero, Van der Ven, like cause them problem because when he's out wide, he's gonna have less of the ball. He's not gonna like, and I know he doesn't traditionally play as a left winger, but of course his natural actions and where he arrives into space to get the ball is different compared to when he's the focal point. And if anything, I would have preferred like Eddie out left wing, just so you get Jesus centrally, because I think it then creates that chaos that he brings and the kind of link up. And like I thought Odegaard was quite quiet, and I think that would have helped if Jesus was more central. And I don't know if this is just with hindsight, but no, it definitely is with hindsight. But because if we win that game, I'm not even having this conversation. But I would have preferred Nelson left wing, Jesus up top, and I think Nelson's directness when he comes on is quite nice, and the balance that Jesus would give, I think, alongside that would have worked quite nicely. So yeah, I was a bit surprised, but yeah, literally sitting on the fence here. I can see why he did it, but was also at the same time a bit surprised. What about you?
Yeah, I think you're right. In the past, we have seen Eddie play off the wing with Jesus through the middle. So we've not seen this iteration where Jesus is the one on the wing, especially the left wing. We've talked about him playing right wing as backup to Saka, but at
He
Arsenal, at
has
least, we've
done
not
it
seen him on the
before
wing.
as well, but I think that was in like it was like a lower profile game where you can kind of just get away with it, sort of thing.
But I think it was right wing. I'm not sure I've ever seen him actually start at left wing for us. Like,
Really?
because
Okay, maybe
normally it
I've got
was
it wrong.
Eddie
I
who
could
was
have
on the
sworn I
wing.
have, but maybe I've got that wrong. Yeah.
Maybe, but I know I've definitely seen Eddie at left wing and Jesus through the middle. I've definitely seen that, but I don't think that was kind of ultimately the problem. Like I know we've
No,
been having issues scoring goals in general, chance creation subpar compared to the likes of City and Liverpool in terms of just big chances being created in the first 6 games. But really, it's our defense and individual mistakes that seem to let us down over and over again. Now, not to take anything away from Spurs, but again, you go 2-1 up at home. Like I don't know what else you can say beyond this an individual mistake to concede that second goal. And Jorginho 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen.
I know.
And you
I was
can't really
literally,
point the blame to a single player who's barely got to play. Like again, you put players in to play who've not had a chance to play with the team most of the season, apart from subbing on here and there, and you put them in this high intensity match, the North London derby. He had time if he just made that pass. Like,
Yeah,
we
this is
might
the
not even
thing.
be here having this conversation. Like, that's
I
what's
know.
wild. It's like it feels like the margin is so tight, but it seems to generally be self-inflicted with us.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay. So the question for you, because you're right, that does seem to be the theme. But how can you get rid of that?
It happened against Fulham as well, right? Like 10-man Fulham, just off that corner, Paulinho, bang,
It's like
2-2.
the margin for people to score against us is so minimal, but it happens so consistently.
Yeah, and that's something that we don't seem to have an answer for at the moment. I think right now, tomorrow's lineup will tell us a lot about what's going to happen. Like, will we just fully rotate? Because we got obviously Bournemouth away first, but then we have Man City in the league,
Mm.
and I'm sure we have Champions
A
League tie as well either
Rodri-less
side.
Man City, that is, yeah.
Yeah, thank God for his violent conduct and trying to choke someone and do a WWE slam through a table. But yeah, so I'm glad to see the guy who gets one booking per 8 fouls finally get a red for something. Not taking away anything from
Yeah,
his
he finally
skills,
got a red,
but
yeah.
yeah, he's a master of the dark arts. Like, City get away with these fouls all the time. But anyway, yeah, I think for us, Rice being back, Martinelli and or Trossard being back, like these are vital going into that Man City game. I just can't see how if we don't beat Man City at home, how going further into the season we're going to have a chance of catching up. Like we need to,
No, I agree.
remove that gap, that deficit. We need to eat into it, and it seems positive. The news coming out of the camp the day after the match was that Rice is minor and whatever he felt in his back, like
Yeah.
he should be available maybe even as early as this weekend against Bournemouth. So for me, it's just, Bournemouth away. If it's a risk to play the likes of Rice, Martinelli, or Trossard, don't use them. Just
Yeah,
please, just save them for City.
agree.
And then just on Saka, because we talk about he's been playing with like pain for like since last season with his Achilles. That news came out when he was away with the England camp. The manager said, every player has pains that they play through. Like this is not unusual at all. I didn't see this on TV, but maybe you didn't say it. Everyone seems to be talking about that he was asking to be subbed off, but Arteta didn't do it. Did you see him signaling to the bench asking to come off after he took the
Um,
really bad? Like you saw, he was holding onto his knee and he took a
one thing.
really bad hit on his knee. Did he seem to be asking to come off?
So I don't remember, like, obviously I wasn't always focusing on him, so I may have missed
Yeah,
it. But the one thing I definitely saw where he was fucked at one point, and like he was literally like hobbling. And I remember there was an attack, and I remember it so clearly, like, oh my god, what is going on here? Where the ball kind of came to our right flank, and Saka was just hobbling in the right back area, and Ben White kind of went and did. Like, I know he overlaps anyway, but he literally kind of went into right wing, and
Saka just played like right back for a bit.
yeah, he couldn't move.
Shit.
And so yeah, like he probably did ask to come off, and I probably just didn't see it because I was watching everything else, not just him. But yeah, he he takes a battering every fucking game, don't he?
Yeah, again, the news seems to be that there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. He's in immense pain and he'll be fine. And
Yeah,
it's like I do wonder if Jesus hadn't already been subbed off, would we have subbed Saka a bit earlier? It's almost like you saw the fans' reaction to Jesus being subbed off, despite it feeling like it was for a valid reason. Imagine at 2-2 trying to
when
go for the win, and then you sub off the guy who created both goals, basically.
I know.
So that was a bit iffy. Like maybe it was just we felt that without him we couldn't go on to win, and we tried to throw the kitchen sink and get that opportunity, but it just didn't happen for us.
Yeah, sure. Before we go, I feel like the match stat summary will be quite a good slide to illustrate the game. But before we
Yeah.
do that, is there any kind of individual performances you want to call out? Well, how did you think David Raya did?
I don't think that if you call this a big game, like let's say against Big Six is a big game, I don't think his performance in a Big Six match, the first one we've seen, was that much better than a Ramsdale performance in a Big Six match. If I'm honest, I don't think it
Agree.
was significantly above. And I don't know if there was jitters or like he wasn't the only one. Like when I looked around, there was a period after we went ahead where we gave away the ball like 7 times in like a couple minutes. Everyone
Yeah.
was on the case. Like every player on the pitch was giving the ball away. So I can't say it's just him. I think I have to criticize all of them, so I don't want to single him out here. But equally, I don't feel I saw. Whereas in the last 2 games before it, we felt we saw a significant improvement on Ramsdale, right? I think in this North London derby, especially, I didn't see much. Apart from just when there were crosses, I do feel more assured of the way he runs out to collect them. I feel quite confident of him collecting crosses into the box. But beyond that, I wouldn't say I saw anything that was a significant big 6-game improvement.
No, I'd agree, to be honest. And like, obviously, I've been quite vocal about kind of thinking Ramsdale can be upgraded and stuff. But having said that, I think, I agree. I don't think Raya was very good. Obviously, he made that fucking incredible save.
That was the at
But
1-0. That was obviously that was a huge moment. The way he had to get from one side of the post and quickly move his feet.
But the rest, and the other thing I agree with you is I do. When the crosses are coming in, I feel very comfortable and confident with him claiming the ball and the way he catches it and stuff. I just thought on the ball he was very took kind of an extra second or two too long. Obviously, distribution wasn't fully on point. I don't know what and obviously these people they're allowed to have off days. I think the annoyance for me is 2-3 key people having an off day in such a big game.
To be fair, I do feel that the holding on to the ball too long is manager led, because Ramsdale was doing that last season, and I do feel we're trying to invite players onto the keeper to free up space for a quick attack. But still, there was some moments where it was a little bit cagey. I know you had to boot it out a few times. I do feel that maybe we are being a little bit harsh in the sense that if you looked at the beginning of the game, I did feel we started very strong.
Mate, that first
we were looking really good. Yeah,
I thought we had them. So since the game, I think this is the first game this season. I've not watched any highlights. I deleted the Twitter app. I've not listened to any content. So I'm tunnel vision. I can't be bothered with it. But
the beginning, right? How did it feel in the stadium? Must be great vibes.
Yeah, this is our group therapy, right? And once this is done, I'm gonna go and listen to all my regular pods and stuff. But that press of ours in the first 30, I think it was the first half hour. Honestly, I think it was absolutely fucking phenomenal. Excuse me, the traps we were setting, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I thought we had them pinned. I really did. And then unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on it to actually make it 2-0 when Jesus.
It was the Jesus where he won the ball from Madison.
I think the game it's so easy to say this, but I so strongly believe if he scores that we're talking about a completely different game. I think because psychologically as well, they're wedded to their way of playing, and fair play to them because they came through it second half and they added in elements of unpredictability.
They looked very good second half.
Yeah,
but they adapted to us. Yeah,
but if it's 2-0. And we've scored a goal from their way of playing being a mistake. We've seen it in ourselves when Emery was trying to play a certain way. Arteta at the start when we had our own teething issues and stuff. That fucks with your head in a game of that magnitude. So I think if Jesus scores that, capitalizing on a structural mistake, I think we're talking about a completely different game. And I think that's my kind of frustration deep down because agree with you. I thought that first half hour was a clinic, man. I really did. Maybe I'm being biased, but I thought it was very good.
And then obviously it's not to take anything away from Tottenham, they play fantastic, but when you change 2 players in your midfield free at half time, I do feel, and I feel the Rice change was enforced, obviously, but he then obviously changed Vieira, so you're bringing 2 new players in the midfield.
Was that tactical? Like I said, I've not listened to or watched anything. Was that tactical? Was it an injury or?
So I'm trying to think. So one thing I've seen going around Twitter, no, but one thing I've been seeing going around Twitter is this idea that when Nketiah plays through the middle, he plays Vieira because Eddie is a low touch. I think it's Arsenal Vision. They were saying Eddie's a low touch player in that final third, and Havertz is as well. And actually playing Havertz and Eddie together, that's not the partnership. I think it's what I was saying to you before about if Jesus plays through the middle, he's going to drop deep, get really involved and play. That leaves space for Havertz, the low-touch player, to move from 8 into the box.
Yeah.
But I guess with the kind of the Rice sub, it did seem odd that Vieira came on. I thought you could have given him a bit more time, just make one change, see how we adjust. But it must have been tactical from Arteta. It wasn't enforced.
Because he was bringing on a Jorginho who high volume. It's interesting because Vieira is someone that can be that kind of high volume player. So maybe he wanted that kind of balance of he's got a Jorginho there, so he therefore wants a Havertz that can be a runner and kind of
That's what
collapse
I
within
mean.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it was, because he's now got that player who's high volume passer. Bring Havertz back in and see what happens there. Now Havertz himself, he obviously had the half volley, I think, on the outside of the box,
Yeah.
and I could see he was
Should
so
be getting that on
frustrated.
target, in my opinion. Like maybe I'm being
Yeah,
harsh,
that was
but
frustrating. So I think that would have made him a hero real quick. He would have got some credit in the bank, score a winner like that in the. Let's do a couple of shout outs to the guys in the chat, and
yeah.
then we'll
Can
continue
just quickly
talking through
before
it.
we do that, can I
Yeah,
just ask
sorry, go on.
what did you think of Odegaard?
I feel in that first 30 minutes, the press you were talking about, that was really great. I think they
Oh,
were all
he
doing
was
well. He
yeah.
was obviously he leads it a lot of time, but the problem was when he got that kind of yellow for dissent or for asking the ref to give a
That
yellow
really
to
felt like
Udogie.
it affected
I
his
feel like
game a
that
lot,
was,
right?
yeah, because then he couldn't be there snapping at their ankles anymore. Like he couldn't take risks. And I feel that really quietened him out of the game. Generally, his pass completion was lower than I think we've seen, generally speaking. It was like 60, 70%. So, it was nowhere near what we're used to seeing from him. Yeah, it felt like a lot of people had a bad day at the office, and he was definitely one of them, I think. He looked really pissed at the end of the game. I saw him just in a clip from someone in the stands, like while the players were walking around, and he did not look happy about not getting the win. Like he looked really frustrated. But yeah, like obviously it was just disappointing game. But equally, what's wild is here we are saying this, and yet we're still undefeated this season in 7 games, and it shows what the levels are, right? Like, I think we have 1 point less than we did at this stage last season,
Right.
and Man City have got 6 wins, 18 points, with 4 points behind. It feels frustrating.
Yeah.
We're not even in the top four, right? So it feels frustrating, but we're 1 point behind where we were, with injuries, as we said at the beginning of the episode, where the starter and the backup are injured in multiple positions, and we've yet to lose a game, right? But
Yeah,
just
I know.
Man City are so phenomenal that
I
the
don't know.
expectation of us
I
this season is so much more.
I've
And like
seen
we've
that
got new
doing the rounds.
players, we've got new players. We're trying to bed into a new style of play. We're trying to get new relationships around the pitch. I
Yeah.
just think equally, it's not as doom and gloom as it may seem. And
No,
if the
it's not.
positive news is good, if Martinelli, Trossard, and Rice are all ready to be back by City by that game, I do think we'll be cooking sooner than we think. I just think
Yeah,
we need
I
to
think
have a bit of patience.
yeah, my flip side to that though is it's okay to be disappointed that we dropped points at home to Fulham. And I think the way the game state could have gone against Spurs, where if we score and we're 2-0 up, and also individual errors being the way we let them back in, I think it's one of like I personally don't really get on board with these things where it's like, okay, let's just assess it against last season. It's like, no, let's just assess it in the what it is this season. It's a whole different year. Individually at the fixtures, we should be winning all of them, in
Well,
my
on that
opinion.
note, the fact that we played our first Champions League game after 6, 7 years, generally we've not been great the match in the Premier
Do you
League
think
after
that had
Europe
an
anyway.
impact?
That's what I was going to say. So actually, if we forget about the previous year and actually just focus on the fact that we really gave it everything in that Champions League game, came back with a bang into the Champions League, and obviously Tottenham had like nearly 10 days to prepare for this game.
Yeah.
We maybe we didn't have enough gas in the tank. I honestly don't know, but yeah, I do think that the Champions League had an impact.
See,
I
this is
think
what
with
I
it being the
don't.
game after it, you don't think those players, like say
Again,
someone like Rice, like or Saka and these guys like playing in the Champions League, you don't think that
I
contributed
think if
maybe to the
I think if we're
fatigue or
winning,
muscle?
I think it does when things aren't going your way. I think if we're winning 2-0, we're not talking about this at all. Like, because these players at the top level, I really think they go on momentum, adrenaline, and stuff. And I think it's the sort of stuff, just think in your own day to day life, when you're feeling fatigued, your whole mindset just changes and the way you
Mm.
see things. When you're fatigued, but you're seeing the good in stuff, like your whole outlook on stuff is different. And you can see that. Like, no one was talking about, oh, have we got a Champions League hangover in the first half hour? No one was talking about that.
Yeah, but I think that's because it's easy to look fit for half an hour. My worry is
Yeah,
as the game went on, like you
it
said, Saka
shows
was
up.
not able to move. Like
Yeah,
how much more could he contribute when he can't move? And it sounds
yeah,
like
fair point.
he asked to come off, and they forced him to stay on. Like I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like Saka never asked to come off. Even Rice, like he's the most durable guy. He's like doesn't miss a minute of football in 5 years. Comes to Arsenal and look what happens. So it can't be a new thing. Like it must be something to do with the way we train or the level we play at and the intensity. We saw it with Klopp, right? Like they played high intensity football, and then after a few years, it caught up with them, right?
Burnt out, yeah.
Yeah, so I do hope we don't.
One to keep an eye on.
Kids.
Obviously, we've got.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. One thing I will say though is that I think it's the Fulham game that still haunts me because that's where I feel 2 points were dropped, and this 2-2, I would take that because there was a sense that we could have lost this game as well.
Yeah.
So I do feel it was a fair result overall, despite the way we let them. Yeah, and they took their chances. Like you got to look at someone like Son when he had his opportunity. He did what Jesus didn't when he had his opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, he was a killer in front of goal. He did what he had to do. He did what he had to do. Cool. All right, let's give a couple of shout outs and then we'll continue this chat. So good to see Mike Halpin, as you mentioned. Morning, buddy. Good to see you here. Bungo tuning in from all the way from the Far East. I think it must be late night over there.
Straight from Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Evening,
so that's a long way away. Good evening, buddy. Group therapy session. That's exactly what it is. Sankalp, good to see you, buddy. Hey, Hassan, good to see you, buddy.
Yes, mate.
What else do we have? So Hassan's about the first 35 minutes. Players looking gassed. Ominous turns. People looking a bit shook, including from afar. Yeah, I think they were strong from the bench. What else do we have? FPL manager, good to see you, Remy. He says we shouldn't be too disappointed considering the injuries and that Spurs are playing very well, which is true. So I think that's a very fair, balanced view. Remy, big up Clayton Nima, Taraguna, good to see you, buddy.
Cheers, mate.
Mike was saying he takes the 2-2. The fear of losing was too much. And we did take quite a few important players off with plenty of time on Wednesday. So not buying into the fact that had an effect. So he agrees with you that the Champions League isn't hopefully a major factor. And then 8 hours time difference. That's right. Okay, so it is maybe evening. It's about 7:30 p.m. over there. Yeah, so overall, I think one to learn from, hopefully. But we just got to hope that none of the injuries are serious and everyone comes back. Martinelli and Trossard both sounded like grade 1 hamstring, couple of weeks, nothing too major. So hopefully that stays good news there. Do we want to look at some of the data, or is there any final players you want to touch on?
No, nothing from me. Any from you?
I'm just seeing the players on the pitch. Not really, I don't think. I guess just that point in the beginning you made about Nelson could have played left wing. I was surprised not to see that. There must be a reason for it, but yeah, I was surprised not to see Nelson start there. I think I'd be more concerned if Nelson doesn't start tomorrow in the League Cup.
I'm so intrigued to see what our lineup will be tomorrow. I really can't figure out what I think he'll do.
You got to think Jorginho plays because there's a chance he also has to play against Bournemouth.
Havertz has to play. I think I saw Bungle.
Havertz has to play. Yeah, I think Bungle said something here. He said play Havertz in the League Cup. The boy needs to find he needs some minutes and he needs to find some confidence. Totally agree. So the data from Mark R Stats on Twitter, as we always show, is the cumulative XG 2.5 versus 1.7 for Arsenal and Spurs, respectively. Expected threat 1.45 for Arsenal, 1.07 for Spurs. This was the first game, I think, that at our stadium, someone in a long time has had more possession than us. 47% for us, 53% for them. I think we called it in the preview. We said we're going to see a team that's going to have a lot of possession and take a lot of chances compared to what we're used to.
Yeah.
Field total 64% to us, 35% to them. So they did have quite a third of the time they were attacking in our box compared to us and theirs. Then defensive action height 55 to 41.
And yeah, you're right. Like we did say in the preview, like there would be periods of this game that would be uncomfortable because they're very brave and very structurally well drilled in the way they play. So yeah, because of their positional play and the people that they had in certain areas, their structure was so good that they were able to play through and out in different periods. And there were a lot of periods where they looked uncomfortable in doing it, like people like Vicario, who I don't think looks the greatest on the ball. And they put themselves in really not dangerous areas, but potentially vulnerable areas where, like we said, the first half hour, the press was great from us. But what I find really fascinating about this illustration on the screen is I described the game from a subjective perspective as like shifts in momentum. Look at the graphs. Look at the XG one. It's literally constantly swapping and interchanging in terms of who's in air quotes winning the XG.
Yeah, we were like taking turns. Like it was
and-
more of a basketball match than we're used to seeing at home.
Yeah, and then even the threat. Yeah, what's that comment you just put? Yeah,
Also,
what
it was
Mike's
just Mike's comment about the fan base in the stadium unsettled a little bit by the Spurs possession.
Yeah, they were, and this I'm not gonna lie. The average match going fan fucking pisses me off because of how stupid they are. Like they are so thick in terms of not knowing the basics about how teams actually play. I remember it last year when Brighton came to our place, and I was hearing comments like, "Oh, it's Brighton. What are we doing?" So watch them
And
play.
it's like Brighton are a top team, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like watch them
But
tactically.
they just think it's some crap team, yeah.
Yeah, they are one of the most tactically well-drilled sides I've seen. And again, it was people.
You could argue that
press.
they're title contenders. If they didn't have Europe this year, I would argue they can compete for a title.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, it's an audacious shot, I know, but if
But
they
like to
were
illustrate how
playing,
good they are, yeah, I get what you're saying.
just
But
to
it was more
illustrate it.
back then, the amount of people in the stadium that were like, press them. And it's like anyone that watches Brighton, no, don't press them. They'll play fucking through you so easily. Like you just have to kind of set traps and you have to cover passing lanes sort of thing. And
Brighton
it's
played their B team against Man United and
they walked the
humiliated
part.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but more to illustrate the point, like what Mike said, he was bang on. I felt the same. I thought a lot of our fan base in the stadium were unsettled with Spurs' possession. And like, okay, it's not comfortable, but like you just have to accept that they're a good team. They're gonna have the ball in periods. And I think I don't like the energy that then goes on to the players. And it's like just to kind of accept that's what it's gonna be for
When you have
periods.
like
And
a
set your
expectation of
traps
the
correctly.
players.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So when you have an expectation of the players and then the vibe starts to turn. So I think like what they're saying in the chat is it was once Rice was not coming out for the second half, that's when you could sense something off in the crowd. And then you kind of add to that the possession that Spurs had. That nervousness, I think, was just like going onto the pitch, onto the players. Because they know it too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like
100%.
we're the only ones who can see Spurs have the ball. They're like, damn, this team has actually come to play football.
But again,
against us.
and that's not the worst thing ever. Like, look at the first half hour. Like, yeah, the possession looks extremely even, and it was. But the first half hour, we fucking nailed it. Like, they had the possession, and we were setting trap. I think that's the thing. It's like, okay, sure, we want to have the ball all the time, but if you can't set your traps correctly, and it's like that's what I felt we were doing. And then it changed. And then just the other thing I wanted to talk about through the illustration on the screen. If you just take that comment off quickly.
Yeah, so I'm going to put them up instead of addressing everything. I'll just put some of the comments up
bring
as
them
we
up
go.
after. Yeah, but like more the threat is obviously it's the kind of metric I like to talk about a lot because I think XG in one game is always really difficult to actually measure. Like there's so many games.
They say it's over a season is like the only accurate number. So that is something we don't actually ever acknowledge much. But one game with that sample size,
to be fair.
It's like you're rolling XG over a season. Like that's more likely to be accurate.
Exactly, because game state determines
games.
the quality of chances so much. But threat is where you've kind of got effective possession, right? And it looks like you're in, well, what it says on the tin, in threatening areas. And that's what I found interesting. Like you can see it on the diagram, right? Like the first half hour up until it looks like the 35th minute when they obviously equalize. Until they equalize, it's all Arsenal in terms of having the ball in actually threatening areas. And then it flipped. And I remember there was that period because I remember thinking like, okay, we're 1-0 up. And it was getting to that swing. So you can see on the diagram, it swings from I want to say 32 minutes and it spikes up until their goal. And I remember feeling uncomfortable. And this is what I love these data lenses because it's like, okay, I've got my opinions subjectively on what I believe I watched. Does it marry up with this? And this is a game where it is so crystal clear in what I watched aligns with what the data tells me. And I remember feeling that momentum shift. I was like, fuck, just get to halftime. And then obviously they fucking scored.
And then they got the goal before halftime. Of course, so yeah, when you look at it visually, as you say, if you're on podcast, I would recommend coming to the 34 minutes to look at the graphic. But it's a big hockey stick almost line. It just kind of, from about 30 minutes or just as we score, we kind of go very flat line going up. And theirs is like, boom, just a straight line up.
Exactly.
They definitely came. even the second goal though, now that you've mentioned it,
Well, just not
after the
even
second goal,
rewind before that. So like it's kind of they kind of had the momentum going into half time, right? And then you
yeah.
kind of come out for half time and then go on, you take over. What you were gonna say?
Yeah, so at half time, obviously, we have the momentum on the expected threat, score quite early on, but then they score immediately after.
Immediately after, and it's like,
And then
fuck
what you
me,
see from
man.
there is neither team really then does much in terms of expected threat after both those goals for a considerable period in the second half. And obviously, stuff like subbing off Jesus, Madison, Son probably has an impact on that. But you do see that we do try to throw the kitchen sink right at the end. There's like a couple final chances. But between like around the 55th, 60th minute, all the way to 90 minutes, neither team really does anything at this point.
And that's where like it doesn't illustrate it in swings, but that's essentially what I believed I was watching. Just no one was taking the control and authority. It just kept switching in between teams having possession. And also like one thing I believe with like Spurs' possession was I thought they were very good structurally in their positional play and everything, but a lot of their possession, in my opinion, was just kind of in their half. And like, there's another diagram coming up on the next slide. Ha! This is what I got.
He's reading your mind. Just for
Uh,
clarity, I don't think Clayton can see the chat unless I put it up. So I promise
so,
he's not just stealing your words, Hassan.
but that's why I actually said I can't remember if I said this on the pod or if I said this to Hassan like off air, but I always felt like me and him speaks it was like see the game very similarly from Twitter and stuff, and that's how I think I followed him and stuff. And yeah, but yeah, that's what I believed as well. Did we actually just read out the comment or did I just laugh at it?
No, no. So his comment was
Yeah.
Spurs had possession, but it was in their half.
Okay.
It's basically what you said, right? So
Yeah.
that's why we laughed at it because
Yeah.
it's basically the same comment. But I think when we heard 10 minutes, just to wrap up this segment, well, and then we'll go to the next one, is obviously when we heard about 10 minutes, after kind of the recent dramas over the last year and a lot of late winners, and I think I'd seen a stat that like an insane number of goals this season specifically across the whole league have been scored after the 75th minute. Like it's an
Yeah.
unnatural proportion compared to prior years. So you always felt like there was just that maybe there's this one opportunity here.
I,
And I think that's the ramp you see in the expected threat as well. It kind of marries up like that 90 minutes to 100 minutes. That's when we like finally were like, okay, we need to try again. And I think at this point they'd already subbed off their most clinical players. And so they just kind of were like, okay, we're going to get this
yeah.
point, and this is a good point to get.
And their midfield already, in my opinion, was doing well. I thought Bissouma was very good.
Defensively, he was very strong.
Yeah, and but then I think they ended with the midfield three of like Saar, Basuma, and Hoiberg, and it's like that's just three destructors essentially. Like I know Basuma's got more to him than just being a destructor, but you know what I mean. Just like
Yeah.
yeah, and but yeah, again, like that kind of hockey. I like what you say about the hockey stick. Like towards the end, it was like we were going for it, and it felt like something was going to happen. And then my mind's failing me now. There was a moment in that 10-minute period where I just remember it felt like the balloon burst, and I remember feeling like the waves were coming, and I thought it was coming, and then something just popped it, and I can't remember what that pop was, but yeah, and then it petered out. But I just think these graphics from Mark every week are brilliant, but like for this week in particular, I really think it illustrates the fluctuations in momentum in this game and who was having control and dominating in different periods. But
Yeah.
even
No,
that, I
no,
remember
fair.
that period. There was a period where Spurs were kind of controlling the game in the second half, and I remember I was feeling so anxious. I was sick to my stomach. Like, yeah,
So
yeah,
Mike didn't feel that we were going to get anything, snatch anything in injury time this time. He didn't have that gut feel.
interesting. So I thought we were going to, and then yeah, like I said, it's something's gone
I
blank
thought
in
we
my
were going
mind.
to as well.
Yeah.
But Bungle says their last attack,
Oh,
the corner on 99 minutes was horrible to get
that
through.
was hell on earth. I was literally just like,
The
I think
thought of losing, the
I
thought
cut
of
my
losing was
finger
too
from
much.
biting my nails. Like,
The thought of losing was too much. Let's have a quick look at the passing networks. If you want to just add a few comments here, especially for the podcast viewers, it's at 39 minutes if you want to see the visual of the passing networks. And then we'll
yeah,
just address some of the comments in the chat. And I think we've only got about 8 minutes before we need to get out of here. So we'll do this section, do some Q&A. If you have any
sure.
questions, please do drop them in the chat, guys, so that we can take them after this section.
Yeah, just more like nothing to add really. Of it, like ours was standard structure, very well spaced out, and yeah, structured very well. But I found Spurs' one interesting because like you look at again, I know the field tilt was was it like 65-35 or something?
Yeah.
But what I found really interesting with Spurs was in terms of the way they were trying to play. So look at that pod of four where they had Romero, Porro, Sarr, and Basuma. It was literally just like a four. And that's what I thought. And then you kind of had Maddison spaced so far out, Van der Ven. And I thought and then obviously Kulusevski was kind of high and wide. And I thought what they did was actually really, really smart. And that's why the first half hour, the traps were great from us. But then they managed to eventually create the kind of numerical overloads.
They persisted, didn't they? Yeah, because I felt like they were in that first 35 minutes we were talking about. I did feel that they were a little bit nervous that we were setting those pressing traps, and I did feel they didn't look 100% comfortable playing their way against our press. And we were setting the traps, right? We were like standing off them, making them feel this false sense of confidence that they've got a few seconds on the ball, and a moment the pass got received, we just triggered the press. So it was like. And obviously that led to the Jesus opportunity that he missed. So I think you're right. Had that gone in, it would have really set doubt in their mind about the way they're playing and the structure. Yeah. But instead, they got through that mistake. Jesus didn't score. And then
they grow in confidence.
The confidence that, we're able to play this way away from home against someone who competed for the league last year. And suddenly they're belief comes out.
Yeah, but the other thing they started mixing up was like they had that one really nice move, didn't they? And again, that was Porro coming inside, which he does, and then Maddison just being in space, and he just completely smacked it straight through to Maddison, who was like in a lot of space. And I think they kind of added in that level of unpredictability, which I think we struggled to react to in the second half, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's got a couple questions here.
Yeah, go for it. There's quite a few comments in the chat today.
So I'm going to take this one first because it's actually quite relevant to something I wanted to read out because I've just read some injury news anyway. But Sankalp says, let's move to the talking heads. Let me switch this. Yeah, so Sankalp says, do you feel we've missed Partey a bit in the last match? That risk-taking initiative would have preferred Nelson start and Jesus centre forward. So the reason I wanted to take this one first is specifically because Charles Watts on Twitter, he's uploaded an article about Thomas Partey ready to hand Arsenal major injury boost.
Okay.
He's hoping to be fit in time to return against Man City next weekend.
Nice. Okay, that's good.
My understanding is that Partey is ahead of schedule in his recovery and hoping to be involved in Arsenal's crucial home game against Man City on October 8th. Obviously, we'd heard he wouldn't be back to after the October international break. So even if he's just a sub that we can bring on against Man City, that is a huge injury boost for us.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm glad. Well, A, that's great news, and B, I'm glad Sankalp brought this up because, to be honest, kind of not even been in my headspace at all. Like, if Partey was fit, the midfield three would have been Partey, Rice, Odegaard, and again, I think you're having a completely different conversation then.
It was those three that we were saying we saw that as like the way we play against Big Six versus like then Havertz plays against other opponents. Like that was all Vieira, but like. We've yet to have that opportunity to really play those three together in these big games, apart from against Man City in the Community Shield, where obviously Jesus wasn't available and Havertz played as striker.
Yeah, and I think I know people have. I think Hassan speaks a lot about this. How like kind of Partey is very the risk taking and I think what Hassan says on Twitter makes me laugh. Is like treats the ball like a hot potato or something in terms of kind of always trying to get rid of it sort of thing.
The speed at which he's trying to get rid of it is so dangerous, but it does create like attacking opportunities that are unpredictable.
And I think in this game,
we're too controlled without him, I think, in a way.
Yeah, and I think in this game, I agree. I think it could have really hurt Spurs because they were very well drilled structurally. But I think with precision, incisive passing, I think you could have massacred them in periods. And I think we were lacking that a bit. And that's why I thought Odegaard was a tiny bit quiet in that sense as well.
And then just in terms of Nelson,
what was the second part? Sorry,
I don't know. I guess Mike's question was, does the manager not trust Nelson? So similar question.
I think he does a lot. I think he
does
a lot. Yeah.
I guess it's just like if Nelson has only been playing limited minutes this season, Smith Rowe limited minutes, as we said. Eddie has played pretty much a part in every single game this year so far.
True. Yeah.
So I guess are you really gonna in the North London derby bring someone in cold? I think that's just all it is really. And I think it was a last minute change. I think he was always planning to use Trossard and the injury happened the night before in training. Like, what can you do?
Yeah, agree.
Mike's got a good question. Compare this to us getting a point at Anfield last year after years of getting nothing. I'm guessing that's how Spurs are feeling, right? Because we're
I
talking
think
about how
that's
for them, they feel like this is a big result, right?
and again, it just shows us like how far we've travelled in this like Arteta and Edu era. Like the fact that we're disappointed by this, I think speaks volumes. And yeah, I think Mike's bang on. I think that's exactly it with them.
Yeah, and Sankalp agrees with you. He says the fact that we're so hurt by the draw shows how far we've come as a club. And then what else do we have here? We have, I guess this isn't a question, but it kind of is. He says Romero is a proper wrong one, ain't he? Suits them, butters
He's
clobber
a
to a T.
fucking twat, isn't he? Do you know what made me laugh? So a couple of my Spurs mates last week, we got in a little bit of a debate about Romero. So I think Romero is just fine. I think he's good. Don't think he's top tier at all. And my mates were saying, "Oh, he's world class." I was like, "Well, he's just not." And my mate was like, "Oh yeah, but he's only actually made 2 errors that have led to goals." I was like, "Hey, that is such a like you can make mistakes that don't lead to goals." And then obviously, like he kind of scored the own goal and he gave away the penalty. I was like, that is literally the best timing ever.
Yeah, like just seeing him score the own goal and give away the penalty. I'm not gonna lie, I was there for that. Like that
Yeah,
brought me joy. That was probably the highlight of the North London derby. Both his incidents.
I just think he's good. Like that's it. I don't know why they try to overdo it. He makes too many mistakes to be considered in the next tier up.
Yeah, I think he is good. I think he's good. I think world class is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
And good to see you, Dream Team Professor. We're
Hey,
just
mate.
wrapping up, actually, unfortunately. But I'm also sound like I'm about to die. So I did tell you I was a little bit unwell, and
You did,
I
yeah.
can barely talk now. I think just this whole episode has almost finished me off. So I'm gonna make some lemon, ginger, and honey or something.
Get
and
yourself a
try
nice herbal tea, yeah.
Yeah, I need to take a breather, I think, before my next meeting. But just before we leave, a couple final. Oh, it's 11:50. Yeah, we do need to go. So these aren't going to be answered. I'm just going to read them out, and then we'll get out of here. So
Cool.
Hassan just says, if Jesus had scored that chance, Spurs would have been mentally destroyed. We'd have momentum. It becomes a tennis score.
Agreed.
Bungle says, swear down if Chris Hughton calls party up in the international break, fly into Accra and having a proper word. And I think we need to send that physio with him again if he goes, where they're like, yeah, he can't play the second game. No, he's got a knock. Like, we need to send someone with him. Like, seriously, it's my God. And then Hassan's last point was Reece and Smith Rowe should have come on when they scored 2-2. Ange played for the draw when he subbed off Madders and Son. He went 4-5-1. So yeah, I think it's a bit upsetting. It's a shame we couldn't quite get over the line for the win. But, we go to tomorrow night. We hope to see wide sweeping changes. We hope to see starts for the likes of Nelson, Smith Rowe, Havertz to get some confidence, probably Eddie again, Kiwior, Tomiyasu, like Ramsdale, hopefully. Like, let's just throw a bunch of people out. Let's get some good vibes back. Let's not overdo it before the Bournemouth and City game in the league and the Lens game, as you mentioned. Let's just get the momentum back in our favour and get those injured boys back quickly and surely.
Well said.
Yeah, it's been great to see you, Clayton. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live. We will see you for the next one. If you enjoyed the episode, if you found it entertaining, please do hit that like button. We appreciate all the support you guys can give. And if you're listening on podcast, any reviews on Apple or Spotify are much appreciated. We will see you for the preview of the Bournemouth game at the end of this week. And otherwise, up the Arsenal. And see you next time, guys.
Onwards and upwards. Up the Arsenal.
I'm on you.